What is up, internet? Welcome to episode 10, I think it is. In the previous episode, I said we would talk about the difference between a fork seal and oil service versus like a complete rebuild. So I wanted to just talk about this real quickly because I have actually been asked this, like, what's the difference? So we're going to talk about what the difference is, and that's it. Yeah, so this is I don't know where I'm at. This is the last big thing we need to do before we can get back out on the motocross track. So once we get the forks rebuilt back on the bike, after that it's really just little things. Don't underestimate the little things. So let's jump into it. I'm trying to suck my gut in. So what's the difference? Let's start with the obvious. Let's look at the parts. This is a Pivot Works fork rebuild kit for the YZ250. A lot of stuff going on here. Lots of O-rings, some shims, bushings, whatever you want to call those. Got some washers over here, more O-rings. These are the oil seals, dust seals. These are the oil seals. These are the dust seals. Usually, when you're just doing seal service, these are the only parts you need. You got some fork fluid. I'm using 7-weight Bel-Ray. And then you've got your dust seals and oil seals. So these are all the additional parts that come with the fork rebuild kit. One of the main things I like are these new bushings here. So you can see the wear on the one that's still on the inner tube. And then here are the new ones. So you've got lots of O-rings, again, bushing replacement here. You've got lots of O-rings, copper washers. You even have little O-rings for the bleeder valves, your air bleeder valves, which are right there. It's kind of hard to see because it's dark, but. So, I mean, just from a parts perspective, you can see with the rebuild kit, there's a lot more stuff than just dust seals and oil seals. Next, we've got our fork already disassembled, and I'm going to put up on the right hand side of the screen, I think it's on the right hand side of the screen, some videos for the YZ250. Dun, dun, dun. I've done I think 2 different fork seal replacement videos on this bike, so I'm not going to go through that again. We've already got it disassembled. Basically, this is what you need to disassemble to do a fork seal and dust seal service on the fork. So we still got the old oil seal here and old dust seal here. So you'd take this hardware off, including the seals. You slide your new seals on, slide your hardware back on, and then you just kind of reassemble the fork, right? So you put your dampener back in the outer tube. You put your 2 tubes together, then you put your dampener on, and then this guy goes on the bottom side. So that's your rebound clicker. And your compression clicker is on the top side, and you just reassemble the fork, you pour your fluid in, and away you go. But when you're doing a fork rebuild, a lot of people skip this step, and that is disassembling the dampener. So the outer piece, the gold or copper color piece, and that inner more alloy looking piece, those two come apart. You can kind of see there's a bleeder valve there, a little bit of oil running out. So we're actually going to take apart the dampener, and there's more bushings and O-rings inside of this guy, and oil. And so we're going to drain the oil, we're going to remove the dampener internals, drain the oil, and replace O-rings, put fresh oil in there. I think a lot of people, don't think about taking the dampener apart or realize there's oil in there, and that needs to be bled. This rod moves in and out of the dampener. So anyway, those are the big difference. All these parts here and your dampener internals. So let's get started, man. I want to ride. Here's the damper internals. There are a bunch of O-rings on here. We'll go through that in a second, but you got your shim stack here at the bottom. And this can be broken down. I mean, you can see you've got threads here underneath this coil spring. You've got a place for a wrench right here. So, I mean, this can be broken down even further, but I have never done that. I don't really ever feel the need to do that. My main thing is to replace all these O-rings and get fresh fluid inside the damper. Bleed it out and make sure this damper rod is returning on its own. That's the goal. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7 and even 8 if you want to count the air screw right here. This is just your air bleeder valve that sits up top there. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 O-rings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 O-rings. And then here's your little ones for the air bleeder valve. Now I counted these all once because there's 2 in each package, 1 for each fork leg. There's 4 of these because these are the ones that go right here. So there's 2 for each fork leg. It's pretty easy to know where they all go because they're all different size diameters. And then you've got 4 of these, so these have to be the doubles right here. They're just, you know, it's pretty easy to use common sense and get them right. I don't think these part numbers match with the online microfiches that you can look at. So here's all the old O-rings. We've got a new copper washer O-ring there, new O-ring on the air bleeder. We've got a new O-ring here, and then new O-ring there, new O-ring there, one there, one there, and one there. The other thing I like to do is put all the other O-rings for the other fork leg into a single bag. I just think it's easier to track one bag like this. There's our other copper washer. Than it is to track like 6 or 7 different separate bags. Not a big deal, it's just I think it's cleaner and easier to track that way. So the next thing we're going to do is put some fluid in here and then bleed it out using the piston rod, and then we'll get this guy in there, and then the rest of it is just reassembly with the new bushings, new oil seal, new dust seal. Put the fork back together, get her back on the bike.
What you working on? This looks cool. Oh.
So that's it. That's the basic difference between fork rebuild. Not the basic difference, it is the difference between a fork rebuild and a dust seal, oil seal service. What did we do? So we pulled the damper out of the damper housing, drained the fluid, we put fresh fluid in, we bled it, and then we put all new O-rings on the damper back into the damper housing, bleed it again. I can't stress how much of a difference there is in the feel of the damper rod as you're pressing it into the housing. So before we disassembled the damper and put the new O-rings and reassembled it with fresh fluid and all that, the damper rod wouldn't even return on its own like it does now. It would return like maybe halfway and it would just stop. when you pressed it in, it didn't have a good, smooth, consistent resistance. Now it's literally like a night and day difference in how the rod feels as you're pushing it into the damper housing. And I know somebody's gonna make a joke about that, but I'm dead serious, man. These forks should feel wonderful when we get back out on the track. And the other thing we do with the rebuild is we replace those shims on the end of the inner tube. So at this point, I'm just gonna finish reassembling. I will put links. I practiced where to place my finger so it's in the right place. So I know, I'm confident the links will be somewhere near the end of my finger. Links for videos where we did the dust seal, fork seal service on this bike. I think there's 2 of them. I think I made 2 videos for it. In case you wanted to see, you know, from the point of actually taking the fork legs off the bike and getting it disassembled to the point where you're ready to do dust seal and fork seal, which is essentially where we started this video. So, because the point of this video is just to show the difference between a fork rebuild and oil and dust seal service. So that's it, man. I think I talked about everything I want to talk about. If not, oh well. It's the end of this video. Keep your upside down. We'll see you guys in the next one. Hopefully it should be all back together.